Hi, let's talk a little bit about Final Fantasy XIV Online. This is not a hate video, and this is not a video to tell people, yeah, hey, you should stop playing this game because I don't want to play it no more. No, I don't care what games you guys want to play, but this is the reason why I quit Final Fantasy XIV. I started Final Fantasy XIV in 2016. I played about 5 years. I'm actually a PvE mentor, and I play most of my games. My gameplay was in Medius on Crystal Data Center on the Medius server. I played almost 2 years on Ether Data Center on Gilgamesh. Now, yeah, this is gonna be related to Asmongold, how like people are screen sniping him and just sort of harassing him. And this person from Final Fantasy XIV, he got banned. And on Square Enix part, good job. But even like a very popular streamer that wants to play a game, let the dude play the game. Okay? I got 4,532 hours that I played on Steam. I also played the game on PlayStation 2, so I probably have about 2,000 hours there. So in total, it's like almost 70,000 hours that I played Final Fantasy XIV. Yes, I played for 5 years, but I don't play every day, all day, every hour. I do work. I do have a life. So, but either way, that's still a lot of fucking gameplay for a game. Because that's the only game I played. I basically ignored all the new release stuff coming out. I used to love I'm a guy that comes from like a JRPG background and isometric ARPG games, a lot of like Dungeon and Dragon type games and games like Warhammer. I love like a lot of Diablo style games. I'm a hardcore Diablo 2 gamer since I was like a teenager, and now I still play Diablo 3 and Diablo 2, and I'm going to be playing Diablo 4. I play Last Epoch. I play a lot of ARPG games. Torchlight 2, Torchlight 3, Warhammer. There's Warhammer Chaos or something. I don't fucking know. I have a few ARPG games by Warhammer. They're all good. And no, I didn't really got like yeah, I play it like a few hundred hours on it, and I stopped playing it. I used to play a lot of Passive Exile back in the day, but then I stopped playing it because it can get very repetitive, and it can be very extreme. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's just for me, it's a little bit over the top. Diablo 2 is just a little bit over the top. Diablo 2 got a good difficulty skill level, but it's a little over the top. But let's just talk about the Final Fantasy XIV community. Now, people can say, oh, the Final Fantasy XIV community, they're so great. They're so nice. They are friendly people. Well, when I first started playing in 2016, the community was not so bad. This is right when Just Heaven Wars came out, the first expansion for the game, and people were actually pretty cool. Like people were really good to me. I was just proud. People treat me really well there, and I even got a house in the game, and people treat me really well there. I was treated really good, and I noticed a lot of things change over the years with this game. I would play for a few years and I stop. And I stop a lot in Stormblood. And I was thinking, Stormblood sucks. Well, it wasn't that great of an expansion. But I stopped playing it because drama in my old FC that I used to play in this FC. I'm not going to mention the FC name, but I used to play in the FC. And these people were hardcore ERP, which stands for erotic role playing. And, fine. If they want to do that, that's fine. Do it not in the community chat, but it was always constantly in the chat all the time. And I would just say, can you please stop doing this stuff in the chat? I want to play this game, and I want to play this game. I don't want to play it for ERP, And people are like, well, why are you on Medias if you're not going to do ERP? I'm like, because maybe people want to be on Medias because they started the game on that server, and it's just like home to them. I actually moved to Ether to Gilgamesh just to get away from this community. I could have just went to a different server, but it's no different. The Crystal Data Center is pretty bad. But Ether is not any better. Ether is a hardcore raid server. And if you're not a hardcore raider, and it's bad because what they're doing to Zach, aka Asmongold, on the game, people are like screen sniping him and just harassing him basically, like not even let the dude play the game, and that's pretty bad. I mean, like I've actually never had any problems with Ether, but I also am not a popular streamer either, so. I actually done pretty well. I learned a lot of raids from people, and people are really good. If you want to learn how to raid, like if you want to learn to raid, and on the Ether data center, people will be gladly to teach you. They that's all they love to do. They love to raid, and I actually had a good time in Ether. It just got kind of lonely because like I was playing the game solo for a while. I was in a lot of communities, and I just sort of drop out. Because due to, and that's another thing in this game, like I know they're trying to, like, hey, we accept all and everybody, and yeah, okay, whatever. I don't agree to all that stuff, but like at least, just keep it out of the community. Just let people play the game. Who cares a fuck about your lifestyle or whatever you do? Like, you probably know what I'm talking about. I don't want to even talk about it, but you probably get what I'm talking about. These kind of lifestyles. You get what I mean? They just like it's just really promoted a lot in these games, and it's just I don't know. Like Final Fantasy XIV changed a lot. I was excited to play Endwalker. I actually bought the expansion, but I quit the game. I wasted money, but it's like whatever. If I ever go back, at least I have the expansion already bought, right? As you can see right here, I got Endwalker, so I already bought the expansion. I actually have all the expansions for this game, but I'm gonna quit. Why? Well, for one thing, there's one thing that I don't like in this game. It's the WoW clone combat system they have, and basically the WoW clone systems that they have in the game. Because basically, what it underneath Final Fantasy XIV is, it's a WoW, well, World of Warcraft online game. Okay, that's the foundation of the round reborn Final Fantasy XIV. It's basically a WoW foundation with the Final Fantasy lore and story and fan base. Okay? On top of it, because they have it all. Square Enix has a huge fan base on Final Fantasy. They've been making Final Fantasy games since 1989 or 88 or 87. When did Final Fantasy 1 came out? I think it was 87. Yeah, I was 5 years old when I played that game. Anyways, on Nintendo. It's just that game changed my life, actually, is what got me into a lot of JRPG games like Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross and Legend of Mana and all the Final Fantasy games. I love all the Final Fantasy games, pretty much all the turn-based games. Okay? After Final Fantasy 13, I started not liking their single player games. Like 15, it's not bad. It's just, it's not, I don't know. Even the new Final Fantasy VII game that they remade, their whole remaster of it, remake, I should say, not remaster, remake. They should have remastered the game. That would have been a lot better. Like what they did with Diablo 2, they resurrected. It's the same game, but they just improved like the overall like graphics, but kept the same like foundation in combat and loot and all that. That's great. I love that. That's cool what Blizzard done. They should have done the exact same thing for Final Fantasy VII, because Final Fantasy VII had the best turn-based system, and it was fine. I don't know why they had to change the combat. There's nothing wrong with Final Fantasy VII combat, and people love Final Fantasy VII for the combat as well, because the Final Fantasy game has their combat. Okay, it's unique with their combat to the story. And Final Fantasy XIV has a WoW combat system, which has like if you play the first Final Fantasy MMO game, it had a unique combat system that not like any other MMO had. Okay, in Final Fantasy XI, it was kind of like a turn-based style combat system, but not exactly the same, but it was different, but it was Final Fantasy. It felt like a Final Fantasy game. Okay? And even like the original Final Fantasy XIV had that sort of same style combat. It was kind of like an action-based combat, and kind of like Final Fantasy 11. Yeah, it was a little bit clunky, but they could have improved that. The combat in the original Final Fantasy 14 was great. It actually had, like, I look at the old Final Fantasy 14, like the original, it had more of the Final Fantasy vibe and style and love into the game than when they reborn it. When they done the new Around Reborn, it's like they're like, okay, staff, play WoW, learn from that, and we're gonna build a game upon that, because we can take all of our theme park of Final Fantasy, because we have a long history of Final Fantasy, and we can make a WoW game with Final Fantasy theme on top of it. And that is exactly what they did. And that's why the game is more popular than World of Warcraft, because it basically is a World of Warcraft game. A lot of World of Warcraft people that are tired of playing World of Warcraft because Blizzard is such a shit developer, they don't give a fuck about the people, and it clearly shows that. And that's why I don't play the game. I like World of Warcraft. I do. I think it's a beautiful looking game. It has a lot of good characters to it, and I see why they kind of copy them. But I want Final Fantasy to be Final Fantasy. I want the community to be actually pretty cool. Like, they're worse than WoW people. When you see these Final Fantasy people saying like, "Oh yeah, WoW people, like people in WoW, they're very toxic." I feel like saying like, okay, I never came across any bad people when I played World of Warcraft. There's a lot of nice people to me. Like, I never met anybody bad in World of Warcraft or in Diablo 3 or any community on Blizzard. I actually had a good experience with it, all the games I played on Blizzard, to be honest. I'm not joking. But Final Fantasy 14, I'm going to tell you one thing. I never had a game, an online game, it made me quit the game, because I just felt so like, when you have people that are stupid and just toxic and dumb and just rude, especially even in dungeons, like, let's say you're new at the game. I know back in the day, people would fucking make fun of you, especially if I wanted to tank. I wasn't a good tank. I never played an MMO game. I'm a guy to play all these single player Final Fantasy games, like I play probably all of them, compared to a lot of people that plays Final Fantasy 14, never played any Final Fantasy games and doesn't even know what Final Fantasy was until they played the online game, because they're just MMO addicts. So they're like, "Oh yeah, Final Fantasy 14 is my first game." Yeah, I know. You know MMO. You know WoW. You're gonna know Final Fantasy 14 because it's exactly the same fucking foundation, right? So I'm just like a guy coming from a turn-based JRPG, hack and slash style action or ARPG games, like Diablo, and I played like Halo games and Destiny 2, and a lot of SRPG games like Wrecker of Agris 2, and Neptunia, like pretty much all the Japanese games I'm into, like like Atlas Games and NISA, Disgaea, and Persona, and yeah. I play pretty much every JRPG game. You name it, I play it. I'm telling you, like, you just name one JRPG game you think I never played, I probably played it. If you think I never played it, mention it in the comments, and I'll let you know if I played it or not. I'll be honest, but I will not fucking lie. If I never heard about it, I'll definitely play it, and I'll be thanking you for letting me know in that game, because I love JRPG games. Final Fantasy XIV, people say, "Oh, it's a great story." I didn't find that was the best JRPG game story I ever played in my life. People said it was like the best ever. Well, like, I don't think they play much JRPG games. I'm not lying. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not like the greatest either. And the story and the fucking cutscenes, like, it's nice to have cutscenes in your game, but in an MMO game, like Final Fantasy XIV has long ass cutscenes, and then there's this wall of text. And I thought Record of Agris 2 had a lot of fucking text. This game is insane. Its story is so much. Like I want to play the game, but it's like a lot of story, like in every expansion. It's not just the first one, the base game. People say, "Oh, the base is hard." No, it's all of them. The game is fucking long. You spend most of your hours just fucking playing the story, which is not bad, but the story is not all that. It's interesting, but it's too much of it that it makes it kind of just like, fuck, it's too much of this shit. Like, really, like, it burns you out. It drags you down. You just want to get to the end game eventually. Like, it's like, fuck, I want to get to the end game so I can, do other stuff. I want to play some combat. I want to see, like, I started this game. I started playing it on a mouse and keyboard. I'm like, never played an MMO game in my life. I only played Final Fantasy XIV because I used to talk to people that I work with at my old job, and they're like, "Hey, you say you always talk about Final Fantasy games. You ever heard of Final Fantasy XIV?" I'm like, "Yes, I have heard of it. But I don't believe in playing online games that you have to pay money every month for it. It's not worth it." They go, "Oh, you should check it out, man. Try it out." And then he actually convinced me playing it. And the person that convinced me to play it actually quit the game. And I'm still playing it after till 5 years I've been playing this game. I just quit last month. And it has nothing to do with... It's partly getting really popular that really kind of turned me off, because it's not that, like, the game is overly hyped when it's really not as great as it's being praised upon. I just think people are liking it because they're just so mad at Blizzard, because people love WoW. People love World of Warcraft. But Blizzard are just being dicks, man. So that's why, like, Final Fantasy XIV, because the developer for Final Fantasy, or the developers in Square Enix in general of all their games, they got a good staff. Like, I will agree. Like, I love Square Enix for their games. They do got a lot of good games. But Final Fantasy XIV, I think that they need to ditch that game and make a new one. They need to make an action RPG game, kind of like Swords of Legend Online or like Lost Ark. I'm not lying. I love these new action RPG games. I'm a guy that comes to play a lot of Diablo games, a lot of Diablo 3. I play a lot of ARPG games. I love isometric. If it's isometric ARPG, it's just a sweet spot for me, man. That's why I love Lost Ark. Lost Ark has a really beautiful art design, art style. Unreal Engine 4, the game, like, with their art style, just looks fantastic, nice. Like, it's like Vanillaware. Like, it has like that real nice, like, cartoonish, but just fine, and it's like very like Asian style, like, Western, like, aesthetic, like, theme. And it's just, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it has like this style, and it's just really beautiful in the game. Like, you play Lost Ark, the game is very, really, really nice looking, really nice game, a nice world, a nice isometric style game. Like, I really think the game is beautiful. It's a work of art. Like, the game, every little detail of that game is very nice. Lost Ark, I don't know how to explain it, but people say once you get to the end game at level 50, it gets really repetitive. But I'm like, aren't all MMO games like that, to be honest? They say, oh, well, it's like a mobile MMO game. I'm like, look, Final Fantasy XIV is like that, WoW's like that, and plus on top you gotta buy all the expansions. Plus on top you gotta pay monthly subs for them, and it's not worth it. Lost Ark is free to play. You can put money into it if you want to, and it's a great game. Swords of Legend Online is also another great game, which is coming out in 2 days. I'm really excited to play that. Sword of Legend Online is actually a very beautiful game. It's made in China, and it has a very Dynasty style theme to it. Very good storyline. The combat is very similar to Lost Ark, like very similar, and it's really fun. I want to play the full, because I only played like the beta and the 2 betas that they had, and I played the demo as well. I want to play the full game, and I want to main that game and get right into it, because, like, when I started playing Sword of Legend Online beta, this is when I start, like, going back to Final Fantasy XIV. I'm just like, okay, I remember I had to play Final Fantasy XIV. For me to continue playing it, I had to play with a gamepad. Like, I could not play this tab target system on the keyboard. It's okay on World of Warcraft. Like, their tab target style, it's actually not bad. It's actually pretty fun. It's a little bit faster. It's more action. It's more fun. Like, it's more spamming. But on Final Fantasy XIV, it's not good. It's very clunky. And it's not, I don't like it. I don't. I come from a very fast-paced like combat system, and Final Fantasy tap targets combat. It's not good at all. It's not well implemented. It doesn't go with the game. It doesn't. It feels out of place. It does, and it ruins the experience because the game is not really that bad, to be honest. If it would be more, if Final Fantasy XIV was an action combat game like Swords of Legend Online, I would still be playing the game right now, and I'd be like, yeah, this is a great game, but I wouldn't like worship it. I mean, like, I like other games. I always have. I played, Elder Scroll Online. I played Guild Wars 2. I played World of Warcraft. I played Blades and Soul. I played Black Desert. I play a lot of MMO games. It's not like I think like Final Fantasy is the game that I only like because I play it all the time. But I had to play with a gamepad because that's the only way I can play the game. That's the only way I could play it. Even that, I was not having fun. It's very slow. I have to take like I don't know. I like it if I want to just be really lazy and kick back and smoke some weed and just play because it's so slow that you could be stoned and half out of it and you can manage it really well unless you're not into savage raids. You probably want to have a good state of mind on doing that. I didn't really play much savage. I don't think I even played. I got into a few savage, but I got kicked out because I don't know. I guess I'm just not good of the combat system. It's not that I'm not good with the game. I'm really actually good with the game. I know the game a lot. I know like people can ask me all kinds of questions with Final Fantasy XIV. I know it really well. But it's the combat, it just really annoys me and it frustrates me. I don't like the combat. When I played like Swords of Legend Online and I went back to Final Fantasy, I was like, man, this combat, it's fucking not fun. It's boring. This game is boring, man. Like this coming from a very like fast pace. The character can just run, jump, fucking float in the air. It's just like, wow, man, this is awesome. And then you go on Final Fantasy, it's like, what the fuck am I paying money for this shit every month? This is not fun. I like the theme park of it, like, cause it's Final Fantasy. I'm a fan of Final Fantasy, but overall the game is not that great. But that's my personal opinion. Don't take it wrong. If you love it, go for it. I'll do it. But for me, not great at all. Not at all. And what I see with Asmongold, just because he wanted to try out the game, let the guy play the game, and everybody's just giving him a hard time. Just give him a hard time. Oh well. It's time to say goodbye to FF14. And I'm definitely not going back to it. I did had a good time. I had some good experience with some people. Like I met some good people. And I just I had some old friends on there. But it's time to move on and play other games. I think I'm gonna be main in Lost Ark for sure. I think that's gonna be my next journey. Well, anyways, once again, I'm going to say farewell to Final Fantasy XIV until you make a new MMO game, Square Enix. Please just action combat. You're doing that with all your single-player games, so you might as well do it with your MMO. And I might come back to you guys. But until then, make it free to play too, or buy to play, and that's it. Like buy it once, and then you know how to do. Monthly subs should be out of these games. It should be buy to play or free to play. Like, and that's it. There should be no monthly subs. I don't agree with monthly subs anymore. This is an old school system, and people still pay it and play it and stuff. I don't know. I was too. Like, it's a waste of money. I can't afford all this shit. I can afford it, but I think it's a waste of money. So therefore, I can't afford it. Anyways, thanks for the watch. I just wanted to give my opinion on this game. You can hate it, love it, hate me. I don't care. I don't like the game. I think it's. I think I had too much of it. I'm done with it for good. And please stop making tab target games. They're just not cool anymore. Okay, just stop the tab target. It's not fun. I don't find it fun. I rather have the game to be turn based than fucking tab target. Just saying. Anyways, cheers.